Hello everyone. Today we have Nasina from UK. She is the assistant psychologist and she also completed her bachelor and master from Brunel University of London. And she is practicing as an assistant psychologist. And those who want to pursue their career in mental health and as a psychologist, and also they can its session is fruitful for them. Thank you very much, Nasina, for joining this. We will start with your inspiring story as a assistant as a graduate. You can say to the assistant psychologist how it was and what was the. Can you please share something about this?
Yes, of course.
What
Thank you, Pat. So I guess I'll begin from my graduate experience. So I started my undergraduate psychology degree um, at Brunel University. So this was a BPS accredited degree. So BPS stands for British Psychological Society, which if you want to go and continue working within clinical psychology, you need to have a BPS accredited degree. My course was a 4-year course, so I did 3 years of study, 1 year as a placement. My placement was split into two parts, one as a research assistant, and the second part working as a housing support worker within a homelessness charity in London. I graduated with a first, and then from then on, I went and did my master's in clinical and cognitive neuroscience. That was for 1 year only at Brunel University, and um, while studying, I worked as a support worker with children from learning disabilities in a private charity in South London. I did that for about a year. I did a sort of a part-time 16 hours bank contract, and then I worked in central London, sort of within Earls Court, as a support worker working with Turning Point. And that was with substance misuse, but also mental health difficulties such as psychosis, schizophrenia, and similar issues. And then I did that for about a year and a bit, a year and 3 months, a year and 4 months. And then I applied for an assistant psychologist role. It took me a very long time to apply. There were quite a lot of applications. I want to say I did 50 plus, very competitive field. But then I started as an assistant psychologist working in step 4 psychological therapies within the trust that I will now work in, within the National Health Service. So the two roles that I did previously was within the private sector, charity sector, and this is within the National Health Service. And I've been working here for about a year and a half now.
That's nice. That's nice. And what first sparked your interest in pursuing the career in psychology and mental health? What was the motivation to join this career?
I think there was quite a few motivations. I think working within the UK and also within just my family and society, you can see the impact of mental health and psychology in everyday. Yeah. Once you learn to study it, you can see how much it affects the lives of others, it affects the lives of us, and how it's beneficial to understand it, to begin to understand the world around you. As I got more into it, you can go into different paths in psychology. So I'm within the clinical psychology pathway, but you can do forensic psychology, occupational psychology, educational psychology. There's lots of different routes. But I think the clinical psychology part, I wanted to help people with mental health difficulties, and therapy, and using medication alongside it was a good way that I thought would help. So yeah, it was quite a natural path for me.
Very nice. So, can you please share something inspiring about because the motivation is to help people in mental health and meditation or medication? Something you can please explore it. Is there any study cases you have already pursued and there is some success stories, please?
So my research hasn't been within clinical psychology, it's been generally within psychology. In the UK, we use a stepped care model. So usually people start from the bottom, which is step 1, which is sort of self-help books, YouTube guides, leaflets. And then you go into step 2 and step 3, which is beginning to look at therapy, groups and individual therapy. And then you go into step 4, which is the more complex and the most integrated, I suppose, care. And that's where you get input from psychiatrists and GPs and social workers, and you have more of a multidisciplinary model. You can have that within step 2 and step 3 as well, but that's usually within sort of the GP's side only. And then within step 4, that's sort of the last step before a patient gets admitted within a ward in an inpatient setting. So usually we see people with more complex cases, complex PTSD, psychosis, severe long-standing depression, and more sort of niche, I guess you can say, or not as studied diagnoses. The research that I've taken part in has been more to do with the implementation of different therapies. So we have psychological services, which is sort of like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. We have EMDR, sort of eye movement desensitization therapy. But then there's also the more psychotherapeutic approaches, which are more relational in nature. So stuff like mentalization, cognitive analytical therapy. Yes, group analytic therapy, which looks at more the relationships between patients and how those have shaped our understanding of the world and how we can work with that. The UK works in a way that people usually go see a psychiatrist first, and they're given some sort of medication, antidepressants, antipsychotics, anxiety medications, and then they see how they do with the medication first, and if they're stable enough and they're prepared to go into therapy, because it is a very difficult pathway. You need a lot of resilience and motivation, and it's very difficult. It can stir up a lot of emotions within people. So if they're motivated to do that after having some sort of medication input, some people don't want to have medication, and that's fine. If they're stable enough, that's okay, and then they can come to therapy. So I
That's
think I'm
nice.
not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, there's going there's and I'm curious that what kind of psychological issues you observed in UK while living in UK, and those people are only the UK nationals or something outsiders, different countries. I want to learn something. What are the current issues people are facing? What is the background of that, and something like that, so the people can avoid as well these kind of issues from the start. Parents, something, the instruction for the parents, something like that.
That's a good question. If I'm honest, because I work in step 4, you see a variety of different diagnoses and mental health presentations. Obviously, because I'm sort of the younger generation, we see more prevalence of things like depression, anxiety. That doesn't mean that those are not within the older population as well. It's quite varied. And because of the service I'm working in, we do see, as mentioned, things like PTSD, emotional personality disorders, EUPD, emotionally unstable personality disorder, and things like bipolar disorder as well. I'd say more prevalent nowadays are things like autism. Autism and ADHD have definitely increased within diagnoses, and we're probably seeing more of an occurrence of multiple different diagnoses together as opposed to just one. So people will come into our service and they'll have depression, anxiety, and OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, with a background of autism, for example. They'll have multiple different diagnoses instead of one. So it's not really a trend in a specific diagnosis or health concern within mental health, but rather the change within the system overall. I think people are more open to mental health and approaching professionals to help deal with their mental health issues than they probably were before. And it's more of an openly spoken about issue.
That's nice. And how are these kind of disorders you mentioned, and the anxiety or these kind of things? Is there any, you can say, your suggestion, something to avoid these kind of issues, or the advice to the parents who are tackling the children's? So, what are the symptoms, more main symptoms? When those symptoms will arise, we can say that, okay, no, we have to be careful about that specific child. These kind of things, if you want to share, please.
I'd say there's lots of different symptoms, and the way that diagnoses work is that multiple symptoms can mean you have the same are comorbid across different diagnoses. So my advice to parents is just to be considerate towards your child and listen to any difficulties they have. If they're struggling in school, if they say they're experiencing bullying, or they're struggling to sleep, struggling to eat, things like these, they can be signs, and it's more of a compassionate way. I wouldn't jump into saying this is a mental health disorder and this, you need medication, you need therapy. I would just be open and listen to the needs of your child, and be a bit more compassionate in what they're going through. For a lot of these people that we see and a lot of people that have these diagnoses, it doesn't mean that they are long-standing. They don't have to live with them for the rest of their lives. And I think early intervention is definitely something that's important. If people are listened to and they have the right support around them, they have their friends, their family, siblings, they can provide a real sort of comfort, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
that's
wouldn't
nice.
jump into diagnoses.
Yes, yes. And how do you emotionally manage working closely with the patients experiencing several psychological issues? Emotionally managing yourself, how you manage these kind of things?
That's also a good question. It can be very difficult, especially when you hear quite traumatic backgrounds and stories. I'd say for me, so every sort of mental health professional, clinical professional that works within the National Health Service, but across England as well, you have a supervisor. So you have your manager, which is who you go to for leave and any difficulties within work, but then you have a clinical supervisor who you go to if you have any questions or concerns about the clients that you work with. And I think supervision is the best and the main way. You talk about sort of any difficulties that you're having, any struggles that you're having with patients, but also I think it's best to leave work in work, and sometimes you need to cut off and not think about the lives of your patients, because it can be a bit intense. You're seeing patients back to back, and they have very intense histories. And obviously, if your patients are emotional, sometimes you get emotional as well. So it can be quite intense, but I try to keep things separate, talk to my friends and my family when there are difficult things happening, and keep connected within myself.
Yeah, nice. That's and about the career advice. What's your suggestion for the students who want to pursue this career in NHS? What's your suggestion for those, please?
I think it's a very rewarding career. It's a very beneficial career for many to have. There are probably people that go into having a psychology degree expecting to come out working within clinical psychology and probably do not expect how competitive it is. Or once they realize how competitive it is, they get a bit scared. Like I said, I applied for, I think, 50 plus different roles before getting my role. It can be quite a competitive field, and there's not enough funding to meet that demand. But I'd say if this is something that you really want to do and something that you're passionate about, then I would keep applying and keep looking for jobs. Sometimes it's just about that one place that will give you an interview. So yeah, just keep going and keep trying, and you'll eventually get something, I'm sure.
That's nice. That's nice. And for your career progression, how you are planning for example, you have to go for the doctorate in clinical psychology, or what's your mission?
So currently I work as an assistant psychologist, and to be qualified as a clinical psychologist, or say that you are a clinical psychologist within the UK, you need to have a PhD. So the plan is to work as an assistant psychologist and then apply for the doctorate. And I think there are a few, I can't remember how many universities there are, but I think less than 20 across the United Kingdom that do the clinical psychology doctorate. It's a funded doctorate, so the NHS and the government fund the doctorate, so you don't have to pay for it. You get paid whilst on the doctorate. And it's a 3-year PhD course where you do placements, and then alongside that you do a research project as well. It's quite competitive. There's not a lot of spaces, again, funding and places for trainees to go into placements. There's not a lot of availability. But the plan is to apply for a PhD, complete the course, and then become qualified.
That's nice. That's nice. And Another thing, for example, the soft skills which are required for like communication and empathy. These are the major skills, and any other skills which are important to pursue in this career.
I think team working is a big one. We often work within a multidisciplinary team, so that includes GPs, psychiatrists, social workers, care coordinators, key workers, and no than that, healthcare assistants and support workers as well. So it's often the role of the psychologist and the psychology team to sort of help manage, well, not manage, but help be a part of that team and look after them as well. So team working is a big thing. Conflict resolution skills as well. Sometimes you can get into situations with patients or patients' families, and it's good to have that rapport building skills and be able to manage that as well. But I think naturally, things that you develop as you go up the ladder, they will come naturally.
Nice, that's nice. And another thing for the students who want to do bachelor, for example, and then master, like you. So, any suggestion who want to start the bachelor, and what's the universities they have to pursue, or how to get this admission, the admission process, and is there any scholarship available for bachelor, or only for the master is available or not? These kind of guidelines for the students, please.
I'm not completely sure on the international side of things. And for my master's degree, there were definitely a lot of international students, so I think scholarships are definitely available. For my route into getting the degree was because I started from school, so I had my GCSEs and my A levels, and I was able to meet the requirements there. Um, yeah, I'm not entirely sure about the scholarship side of things. I think the universities change their requirements every year, I'm sure, and I know that is obviously a paid course to do. So I think mine was £9,000, something around that time per year for the course, and then the placement year, I believe, was 1,000, and and I believe it's more expensive for international students. But you can apply in a student visa, and I'm sure you can get in. There's lots of universities across the country that do BPS accredited degrees. But no, I'm afraid I can't.
Ah, that's good. That's good. Thank you, Senior, for this session. A brief session, but I think so. We have covered all the aspects, and I appreciate your time. And final advice to this to the audience who want to pursue the career, and also who want to pursue the studies in psychology. Just your final advice before ending the session, please.
I think my final advice is just to go for it if it's something you want to do. It's a very long career path. I think the average person takes about 10 years from graduation to qualifications. So it's a very long pathway. But again, if it's something you want to do, go for it. There's always, I think it's always beneficial to have lots of different people from different backgrounds and different cultures to come work within the mental health system, because of course we are working with people exactly from those different backgrounds. So yeah, I hope the session has been useful to anyone that's wanting to go into the career.
Thank you, Nasina, for your time. Thank you, and have a
Thank
nice
you.
time. Thank you.
And you, thank you.